Good morning, folks, and welcome to the Short Vol Show on a day when we do have major indices indicated lower. And to figure out why that's happening, well, Apple's down, and Target just released earnings, which, from what I can understand so far, it looks like they missed. It looks like they were expecting a $1.36 and they got a $1.32. So Target indicated down a couple. We also had global news, which was kind of messing with things. So let's take a look at investing.com and let's look at the top things according to them to know going into the market. Coming into the market today, for if I can get off their ad blocking problems here. Okay, thank you. Allow this domain. All right, so I'm going to go to my ad blocker and I'm going to allow this domain. Anyway, so that's fun. So there are world global events that are causing the markets to be lower. One of them is Italy, where the bonds have been tanking recently. The other one is Turkey, where the Turkish lira is exploding to the upside. And let me see. I'm not going to be defeated by this ad blocking thing. Okay. And in the meantime, what's happening? It's funny. While us normal mere mortals are hanging out, trying to make a living, a lot of these guys are off going to conferences, and I apologize for. These guys there's a VIX conference right now in Vegas, called the EQ Derivatives Global Conference, and so a lot of fund managers and whatnot are off. Will be off in Vegas for this May 23rd to 24th, 2018 conference. Fourth annual gathering of volatility and alternative risks premia buy-siders, asset owners, and sell-siders taking place at the Wynn Vegas on May 23rd through 24th. So if you are a successful manager, or if you have lots of YouTube advertisers, you can go to this conference. And it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that conference that's useful to all of us. As we look this morning at the markets, you will see that VIX up. And let me try to fix this a little bit. I'm all discombobulated today. So let's see. Display. Let's try to get this more centered here. Is that better? Let me move myself out of the way. Blah, blah, blah. All right. So VIX up $1.25 points today, with the E-minis down 1675, Dow down 174, and NASDAQ down 66 points. This is kind of coming off the lows here. Let's take a look at the chart. So not much off the lows, however, from that chart. Let's switch over to this one here. You can see little off the lows from last night, but a steady decline over the night session. Similar in the Dow and the NASDAQ. Now, part of this has to do with, surprisingly, might be surprising to you, but part of the news is being driven currently by Donald Trump and questions over what's going to happen with the upcoming summit in North Korea. And of course, pushback coming from North Korea a few days ago after the joint South Korea United States military exercises in the region. And of course, domestically, more rattling back and forth. The Trump administration asking for an investigation of the investigation, the Mueller investigation. It's always hard to tell how much that sort of thing plays into the news. How much domestic stuff plays into let me see if I can turn this off. All right, let's see if that will work. I'm determined to get this investing.com thing to work. All right, I think I actually disabled my ad blocker. Okay, so this is what investing.com has for the top stories today affecting the market. So Fed minutes coming up at 2 p.m. Okay, so global stocks hit by geopolitical uncertainty. It says, Wall Street ended lower on Tuesday after U.S. President Donald Trump said he was not pleased with recent U.S.-China trade talks that took place last week, dampening the positive sentiment seen since Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin announced over the weekend that the trade war was on hold. The sell-off a day earlier on Wall Street spread to Asian shares on Wednesday, sending the Japan's Nikkei and China's Shanghai Composite down 1.2 and 1.4% respectively. European stocks shared in market jitters on Wednesday, sliding more than 1%, with a string of negative economic data adding to the sell-off in midday trade. The pound hit a fresh 5-month low against the dollar on Wednesday after reading of annual inflation unexpectedly slowed to 2.4%, its lowest since March 2017. Euro hit 6-month low against the dollar on weak private sector growth. Oil drops amid report that OPEC considers output increase. Yada, yada, yada. So we will see if the sell-off continues into the day today. I wanted to address. I got this comment on my page, and apologies to. It says, "Hey David, I was hoping we could communicate more often since I'm just finishing my undergrad. I'm looking into putting 80% of my portfolio into TVIX long term. Any opinions?" This person is asking whether it would be a good idea to put a lot of their money into TVIX long term, and as I guess I need to make the case of why that's a bad idea. TVIX, of course, the leveraged long volatility ETP, and I responded to this question by saying I don't think that's a good idea. Just take a look at the chart of TVIX long term. So let's do that right now. TVIX. Now, if you've been trading TVIX only for the last couple months, it might have seemed like maybe a better idea. But let's go to the 1-year chart of TVIX. Okay, there's the 1-year chart of TVIX. So started the year around 26, now 495. All right, let's go to a 3-year chart of TVIX. Let's see, high of 4,975. That's kind of off the chart, isn't it? So take a look like that. High of 4,975, a low of $4. So there's several things going against TVIX in the long term, and the biggest one is contango. Contango is eating away at TVIX and other of these VIX ETPs, and we've been, I guess the stat is something like 80% of the time we're in contango, and that's just eating away at these. So hanging on to these long term just doesn't make much sense. The other thing is beta slippage, which is like when you have a leveraged a leveraged ETP, which is being rebalanced every day. Excuse me. Since the objective is to obtain leverage on a day-to-day basis. So let's say if it's a 2 times leveraged ETP like TVIX is, okay, the goal of TVIX is to obtain 2 times leverage of the futures. So if the futures are up 20 cents, then the goal is that TVIX would be up 40 cents that day. If the futures are down 20 cents, then the goal for TVIX would be that TVIX would be down 40 cents that day. And that's the goal. So to get to that result, what they have to do is when TVIX starts to go up, they need to buy twice as many futures. And when TVIX starts to go back down, they have to, turn around the truck back around and sell 2 times as many futures. And when you have to keep rebalancing like that, you end up negative scalping. So you end up buying higher and selling a little lower. And there are some rare type of situations where beta slippage can kind of work in reverse, and you can get actually results of more than what the leverage was supposed to be. So if it was 2 times leverage, you could get like 2.5 or 3 times leverage, and you could actually get it to go in the other direction a little bit, do sort of the opposite of beta slippage. But in general, when you have a leveraged product and you have to rebalance it all the time, you're going to get beta slippage on top of, and this is true for like your UGAS, DGAS, your DRIP and GUSH, and all the other leveraged ETPs. However, the thing that's unique and that really, really hurts you specifically about the VIX ones is you've got the futures in contango. That's kind of more unique to the VIX ones. Now, contango is not unique to the VIX. You see that in the oil market. But as far as the leveraged ETPs, because most leveraged ETPs, like your your gold ones, for example, it's a basket of stocks, right? It's not based on futures. In most ETFs are based on equity, so they don't exhibit contango. Contango only occurs in a future situation, and it only occurs in certain future situations. For example, the S&P futures are not going to exhibit massive contango decay. It has to do with the exact nature of the volatility futures. You get contango in the oil industry due to storage costs of moving oil around over time, this sort of thing. But so I think suffice to just look at the chart to conclude that it's probably not a good idea long term to put a large percent of your portfolio in TVIX. And I certainly, usually when somebody asks for my advice on something in the financial world, I like qualify it over and over, and I say, well, I'm not a financial advisor, and everybody has their own opinions and this and that. Like if they were to ask me like, oh, should I buy Square, SQ or something? Oh, well, I'm not a financial advisor. People have different opinions on the stock, on the industry, this and that. But if somebody asks me if I should be long TVIX long term, it's a resounding no, and it's an aggressive no, and I will be on the record as saying, no, that's not a good idea. Another question I got today, which I'm still not come back with I'm still researching this one because I got a suggestion on an article which I haven't quite found yet, but I hope to find it soon. And this was a question on StockTwits, and it went something along the line. I'm trying to pull it. Okay. So here's the question. Any source you can ask about the average yearly losses on short vol products from both beta slippage and contango. And I did get a bud to point me to an article which I haven't found by this guy Pravitt. So I am looking into that, and I will find it. Obviously it's easy to find stats on like the performance of, you know, XIV or that sort of thing, but this guy Pravitt from Macroist Advisors apparently has a really good article on the effects of contango and beta slippage over a long period of time. And this kind of goes back to that last question about getting long TVIX for a long time. So, you know, everything's related here. There is another conference that's coming up that is interesting for me at the SIBO. It's actually just a presentation for one day at the SIBO that I found on Twitter here. Let me go quickly and find it for you here. One of my friends saying the average monthly contango is about 6% long term. And let me find this. Okay, so this is this conference that's coming up at the SIBO on Tuesday, June 19th, VIX Investment Seminar, RCM Alternative. So I'm going to try to get a couple of these guys. I'm like trying to get one of these guys to talk to me as I try to make that stay on the screen. So VIX Investment Seminar, what caused February's VIX-mageddon? Hear from industry experts. So, you know, it's hard for me to get with some of these industry experts because they're, you know, they're doing their own thing. They're in these big funds, and most of these people are dealing with like really high wealth individuals all the time, of which I'm not. But, you know, we want to bring these leaders in VIX ideas to you, our viewers, so that you can have the same access that these high-risk individuals do. So I'm working on that. It would be great if I could go to the EQ Derivatives conference and hobnob with these other guys, but in the meantime, we will be here monitoring the markets for you as we move forward into the day today. So let's take a look at the chat, and not a whole lot of chat going on, or maybe it's not. Let's see. All right, here's a chat. I hope you're going to tell me TVIX is going to run. How high will the VIX go when we have the great collapse? Dave, would you recommend buying Bitcoin? Would I agree? Insane the Membrane is the biggest song in history. Can Chinese people have... never mind. Okay, so I would say don't buy Bitcoin. Insane the Membrane is a great song. You got that one right. And the other ones are just teasing me, so that's okay. Bitcoin, I would say sell it. And Insane the Membrane is a good song. So thank you for checking in with me in the chat, and thanks for watching today, and I will check you out on the next episode of the Short Vol Show.
Looking out across the nighttime, the city winks asleep beside. Hear his voice shake my window, sweet seducing sighs. Get me out into the nighttime. Four walls won't hold me tonight. If this town is just an apple, then let me take a bite. They say, why? Tell them that it's human